Hi, I'm Jean Schumacher, founder of Simply Plant Based, where I have programs to help you to change your health destiny, including the Pregnancy Advantage with Dr. Deborah Shapiro, an OBGYN, and she and I help women to get their bodies pregnant ready, especially if you're dealing with infertility issues, as well as the new program, the Plant-Based Academy, where I provide help, support, guidance, and resources to help you switch to a plant-based lifestyle. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Merrilee Jacobs, who produced the movie Eating You Alive, as well as the documentary Disease Reversal Hope! Exclamation point, which is based upon the book by Dr. Scott Stoll and Dan Purjes. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me here today.
Oh, well, thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Well, okay. What made you go plant-based? Just tell us your story.
Oh, well, you know what? It wasn't a decision I was looking to make, honestly. My business partner and I, the director of Eating You Alive, we had been contacted by a local physician who was doing monthly meetings, seminars about the plant-based diet and reversing disease. And so they had this whole program going on, and they've been doing it for several years, and they were wanting to expand their reach. And so they thought, we really need to get some videos done of this series so that we can kind of share those and actually give them to maybe people in other states or whatever, so they can have seminars in their locations to do it. And so we sat down with them from that perspective, from a production perspective, to kind of help them expand what they were talking about. And in the course of the discussion, it's like, okay, so what is this? What is your message? Who's your audience? What are the takeaway points? What do you, all these kinds of normal baseline questions that we ask any of our clients. And so as we sat there and listened to him talk about, all of these things, we were just really kind of fascinated by it. And then he said, have you seen Forks Over Knives? And at that time we had not. And he said, you need to go back and watch Forks Over Knives. This was on a Sunday because they're busy and they have office hours and all that kind of thing. So we'd actually met for Sunday brunch, and they'd fixed us a plant-based meal. So we went back to the office and we watched Forks Over Knives that afternoon. And at the end of the film, Paul said, I don't know that I believe this, but he has a history of heart disease, cancer, diabetes. I mean, the whole, everything in his family background. And he was 40 something, late 40s. And he's like, I feel like I'm going down this road, same as my father. His father had had a heart attack, a triple bypass, and a stroke all within the same week. Yeah, pretty bad. So he's like, I think I'd like to try this, but he goes, I don't really know how to cook. He's single. He said he didn't really know how to cook. And I love to cook. And I used to, before I got into production, I used to have a catering business and that type of thing. And so it was like, he goes, would you be willing to help me? And, I was having some issues of my own, nothing really major at all. I grew up with allergies and asthma and some of that type of thing. And so it was like, I think this could probably help. I was noticing some digestive issues as I got older. I was like getting into my 50s. And whenever I ate dairy is when I noticed that. So, and I knew dairy wasn't that great for me, but I was a dairy addict. Like anything dairy, I was all over it. I once thought it would be the most glorious thing to like travel the world by cheese, right? So I would go into all these different places, all these different countries, and try their cheese. I just loved cheese. And honestly, we were in Rome. This is long before plant-based, but we were in Rome, and I remember walking into this gelato place that was not just gelato. I mean, I loved the gelato, but it wasn't just gelato. They had fresh yogurt. And it was like a yogurt bar. So they had all this wonderful fresh yogurt. Then you could put all these toppings on it, fresh fruit and everything else. And it was tart and it was creamy and it was just amazing. So that was me. I was the dairy addict. But anyway, he said, would you be willing to help me, just try this out? Because I think I'd like to do this. And I said, sure. So Monday morning, we went into the office, and he told the rest of the crew there what he wanted to do, and we have great crew. And so the crew said, well, why don't we all just do it together? So you talk about
Really?
community and support, and all that type of thing, how much that's helpful and necessary. And so for us, it really was. So yeah, we determined that we were going to do, as a crew, we were going to do breakfast and lunch together every day, eating this way. And within 2 weeks, we saw some very serious changes, serious improvements. And it was across the board. Our oldest person in the company was in early 60s, and the youngest person in the company was in their early 20s. So we had quite the range there, of both conditions and all these kinds of things going on. So anyway, 2 weeks, we all saw a huge difference. And by the 6-week mark, I think Paul was the one to have made the most dramatic change. He dropped 45 pounds in 6 weeks. And he looks like a totally different person. The before and after pictures are incredible because, well, you can just see the difference. He looks like a totally different person. And the acid reflux was gone, and he'd had tendonitis in both elbows. That was gone. Rotator cuff issues, which is terrible for a guy that works with a camera. That was gone. That was gone like by 2 weeks in, And so I told him, because Sunday was that Sunday that we met with the physician was our first full plant-based day. None of us, we didn't have anything that wasn't clean that day. And it happened just overnight. I was not anticipating that when we went to have brunch with these folks at all, but there it was. And I often told Paul, if I had known that day was going to be my last plant-based day, the day before, I probably would have pigged out on cheese on dill Havarti. I didn't, and that was the end of that. Literally, that was the end of that. So it was a deep dive in all at once. No waiting in the water. We dove in the pool.
You dove in the deep end.
We did. But I think for us, that was like the most effective way we could have done that, because when you deal with addiction, I don't know of anybody that goes into any kind of recovery program where they say, oh, you're addicted to prescription drugs, so we're just going to give you, 2 pills a day. You've been taking 4 or 5. We're going to cut you back to 3 pills. This week we'll just give you 3 pills a day, and the next week we're going to give you 2. It doesn't happen that way. When you're dealing with addiction, you get cut off, period. And I think that's, obviously they do that for a reason. And it's because it's probably the most effective way of gaining control over those things. And so I know, at least with us, we found that to be the most effective way to deal with the cravings and all of that, was just really to cut it off and clean it up,
Well, I've heard a doctor say that medicine, it's dose dependent. Like if you take an antibiotic, you need to take a certain level. Let's say it's 100 milligrams or whatever the antibiotic is. And if you're only taking 25 milligrams, that's not going to cut it because the dose is 100 milligrams. Well, it's the same thing with food, that if you're going to just give you a little bit of plant-based foods, you're still going to have the issues that you had before until you completely go plant-based. So,
and don't you, I think we found too, in our conversations with people, over the film and everything, I think we've found it's been very frustrating because we see people that are hurting, that are sick. And I believe, we truly believe this is the only solution, the only diet out there, if you want to call it a diet. It's a lifestyle, but as far as food related, it's the only thing that actually has been proven to reverse disease, not just weight or anything like that, but totally reverse diseases of all kinds when you're talking about chronic disease. And even those diseases that are not chronic diseases, eating this way builds your immunity. So you have much better fighting immunity against those things that are easily contracted. But I think the frustration for us is that oftentimes people were like, oh, well, I can't do that. I just kind of got to wade in slowly. And I think I understand from an emotional perspective, that, because it is scary and it may be difficult because you have family or social situations, whatever it is. But at the very bottom of all of that is that if you wade in slowly, then you are not getting the maximum benefit. And when you don't get the maximum benefit, you're not getting the maximum results. And when you don't get the maximum results, then it's so much easier to get discouraged and go, oh, I tried that and it didn't work. Well,
Right.
no, it didn't work because you weren't all in, you
Right.
know? And so we always tell people, you're going to do this however you want to do it. However you want to approach it is how you're going to approach it. Nobody's going to make you approach it in a particular way. You're going to have to make that determination. But if you want the maximum results in the shortest amount of time, right? If it's a hot summer day and you want to get cool, you don't wade in the water. You've dove in head first into the deep end, so you are totally immersed. And that's how you get cooled off in the quickest way possible. If you want to reverse disease in the quickest way possible, then you have to dive all in. And I don't know of any other way to do it.
Oh, so true. 100%. 100%. And how awesome that you did it with a whole crew, because you're right. You have to have that support with you, because your body's going to go through a massive amount of changes and you need to know what's coming.
Yeah.
And
you know, you say that not to be crude or crass or anything, but yes, in those transitional days and weeks when you are making this thing, there are lots of things that are coming, and and it's good to be able to laugh about it all together, because when you know something's coming, you can go, excuse me, I need to step out of the room, or you can apologize in advance for what's coming before it hits everybody else.
It's true. No, and I think of myself as in this role in Plant-Based Academy, where I think of myself as, you're Dorothy, you've got the ruby slippers on, you just killed the witch, and you're like, I just want to go home, you know, and the Munchkins are like, yeah, we got nothing. There's no GPS out here. There's no coordinates, you know, and I think of myself as being your guide along the yellow brick road and like going, hey, psst, you know, wait, no, there's a witch. You pissed her off. She's gonna be throwing fire bombs at you, number one. And then if you continue down that road, there's going to be winged monkeys that are going to pick you up and take you in the opposite direction. And I kind of compare that to like the paleo or keto diet, you know, and that's the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Just 100%.
Yeah. But it's so confusing because there's so much stuff out there. And, you know, unfortunately, people talk about following the science, and science is perverted. It can be so easily perverted. And I think we're learning that more and more now, you know, over the last numbers of years, where we see this happening, when you start to realize all the big players that are kind of involved in this. And so there's so much that comes, like, you know, there's science behind the keto, and that, well, actually the proof is always in the pudding. And you just have to look at the people and go, okay, how's your blood pressure? How's your cholesterol? You know, how's your acid reflux? How's your energy level? Do you have arthritis anymore? Are you still on medications? The proof is in the pudding. And if none of those particular diets or approaches are removing those negative things from your life and giving you the positive things, then it doesn't work. I don't care what some report has said. It's not working. It's misinformation.
Right. Unfortunately, there's a lot of it out there. And with,
yes, exactly.
You know, the internet brings good and bad, you know,
100%. You have to be discerning.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's one of the challenges that the youth of today is going to have, because there's so much information out there. You know, back in the day, we had Walter Cronkite who came on and told it like it was, and that was it. And you believe Walter, you know, because like he had it. So yeah, there's a whole lot of the spin, you know, that's out there that you've got to cut through. And I think that's what I do in Plant-Based Academy. But I think of myself as your tour guide, you know, to get to Oz.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful analogy.
Right. Okay. So you produced Eating You Alive, fabulous film, honestly.
Thank you.
And the most recent documentary, Disease Reversal Hope. Tell us about your involvement in this movie. I mean, both these projects. I mean, wow.
Well, yeah, you know, Eating You Alive was kind of it's funny. Paul, my business partner, the director, he's the one who started the production company. He's been in production for like over 40 years. When we made this switch, of course, all of us are just really, pardon the pun, but all of us are really hungry for information at this point. You know, we watched Forks Over Knives, great. It inspired us to go ahead and take the plunge, which we did. And we're eating copious amounts of food every day, clean food. And we start watching everything that we can find on the subject matter. So we watched films like Hungry for Change and Food Inc. and, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, and all of these wonderful films that were produced for the purpose of inspiring people and educating them. And in all of those, we took, like, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead was incredibly inspiring, to us. The relationship and the emotional connections and those things were amazing. Forks Over Knives did such a wonderful job of bringing in, the scientific perspective and Dr. Campbell's perspective and Dr. Esselstyn's experience and all those kinds of things. And so we took a look, and all of these films had so much to offer in that way. And we loved, like, the way certain movies presented information with graphics and animation and just all of this kind of thing. And we're all of us are influenced by the environment around us. So we watched all of these movies, and the more information we gained and the more our bodies were changing and our health was changing, we're like, why doesn't everybody know this? There's these great movies out there, but you talk to people and it's like, what? I've never heard of that. What is that? And so we were so passionate about it that Eating You Live was really a passion project, and our attempt to spread this message. It's like sharing, like a religion. You want to share the gospel. You get really evangelical about it because it is good news. It is hopeful, and you want to see these people change for the better and experience life vibrantly, so you just can't help it. So that's what Eating You Alive was all about. And we put this together. So it was truly a labor of love, in taking the best things about all of what we had watched. And then the questions that we had when we were making the transition, we really wanted to give the viewer the answers to the questions that we had and the challenges that we faced, but we didn't want to make the movie about us. We're kind of more, believe it or not, we're kind of more behind the scenes kind of people, not in front of the camera people. So that's why we told our story, but through the stories of others, and wanted to, I think one of the things that may have made that movie a little bit different, in that movie, we included 3 recipe demos, which some people said, oh, the movie was long, which it was, but we thought those were important. So we wanted to take the viewer from, here's the problem, here's the state of the union of our health crisis, here's how we got here, right? And here's how you can get your way out. And here's these stories along the way that exhibit how these people did it, and you can too. And oh, by the way, we know you're afraid of changing your food. So we're going to throw in these recipe demos with things that are kind of familiar to you, so that when you see, oh, I can eat that and that's clean. Oh, that's cool. Well, if I can do that, then I can really do this. The whole reason for why those things were put into place. It was an incredible learning experience and an incredible joy to put something like that together. For me, that was my first documentary. It changed things for us a bit. We loved that process so much. Disease Reversal Hope will be our 3rd one, and we're actually in pre-production on a couple of other ones now going forward. A couple of other documentaries, not necessarily health related, but still, we love the documentary work. So. Oh,
no, it's brilliant. But I often think of like Forks Over Knives, like Lee Fulkerson, he jumped in, okay, you're going to do this too. But you guys did it behind the scenes, and you guys should be included.
Yeah, the movie was the result of us having done it and had the results. And that's kind of was the impetus for it. So.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Well, has your personal family followed your lead to change?
To some extent, some of them have. My father had a heart attack. That was a big scare, for us all. They live really close to me. So it was like at 2 a.m, I got a call from my mother. She's a nurse. Very calm on the phone. Of course, on the other end, I'm freaking out. What? So I'm like running up our driveway, running to up the road. And it seemed like forever that the ambulance took to get there. And like they were not in a hurry. It didn't seem like, I'm thinking, get my father to the hospital. Let's get him to the hospital. And everything seemed to move so slow. It was such a nightmare. But that scared us pretty bad. And it was probably It was probably about a year after he'd had the heart attack that our team made the switch. And one day I get this call from my mom, and she's like, I was wondering if you could kind of come over and maybe show me, how you're cooking or share some things with me. And I'm thinking, Mom, you're a fabulous cook. I learned to cook from you. You don't need me to show you anything, just follow these particular rules. And I'm sure you can like change anything, alter recipes that you've cooked for years or whatever. Anyway, that was really sweet. And so I did that, and they made the switch, and have been really good about my dad's been very stringent about it. And, he's 86. So ever since then, so for the last 10 years, he's been going to his cardiologist, and he's clean. He's in great shape. He's clean. He's not on any medications. And his, the doctor goes, I don't know what you're doing. My dad, of course, happily shared with him what he was doing. But he says, whatever you're doing, you keep doing it, because I don't see people typically your age in this great of shape and not on medications and that type of thing. My dad and I actually play pool every Sunday morning for a couple of hours. That's our time together. And I'm really grateful for that. And I probably wouldn't have had that if he hadn't made the change, So I'm really grateful for that. But with regard to like my husband and my children, I cook that way at home. So when we eat at home, we eat that way. But that's not to say, because my kids are in their 20s, and that's not to say that when they go out with friends or whatever, they don't get a cheese pizza or, we'll grab something here and there. But they actually recognize the after effects of doing that, my youngest son and I were in TJ Maxx, and he was like, Mom, I really want, can I get a bag of like Sour Patch Kids or gummies or whatever? And I remember telling him, I'm like, I want to buy those things for you. Those are terrible for you. I feel like a drug dealer, because I know what sugar does to you. So why would I want to buy that for you? And it was like, please, please, please. And so he was old enough at that point, and I'm thinking, okay, because I'd been cooking at home, and everything I'd been at home had been cleaned. So they were at the age at that point where they weren't really getting stuff out anywhere else, because they didn't have driver's license. So it's like they were kind of a captive audience at home. So I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and do this. So I gave it to him, and he ate the bag. He felt so terrible. And like 20 minutes later, he's telling me, we're driving in the car, and he's like, oh, Mom, why did you get that for me? I feel so bad. And it was tickling to me. And I turned around to him and I says, well, the reason why I did is because I kind of figured this was going to happen. And I thought it would be so much better if you yourself experienced the side effects of what that did to you. It would be more of a reminder that the next time you wanted something like that, you go, oh, you know what? The last time I did that, I felt really, really awful. Why would I want to do that again? As opposed to me saying, no, I'm not going to get that for you. And then you would just continue to want it on your own. At some point, it's got to be personal to you, and you have to make the decision based on how it makes you feel, So that was just a little life lesson there.
Oh, I got the same thing. I was tutoring. This was one of those like, Mayday, my kid has a chemistry test the next day. And I spent 3 hours with this kid. It wasn't going to help. I'm just saying. But I'm in a part of town, because I usually bring my food. And I'm in a part of town I really didn't know. And I was starving, because it was like 3 hours after school, and I was hungry. So I'm driving along, and I'm like, oh, there's a bagel place. And as God is my witness, I was just going to get a toasted multigrain bagel just to get me home.
Yeah.
And I go in, and the guy says, oh, and I used to be a cream cheeseaholic.
Oh, okay? Me too.
I mean, a stick of cream cheese, no problem. I got that
exactly.
down. And so he goes, oh, we've got this new cream cheese. It's got walnuts and raisins and cinnamon. And I'm like, oh, I eat that, And I couldn't even stop myself. I couldn't stop. I could not stop, because I'll be the first to go, hi, I'm Jean Schumacher. I'm a food addict. Yeah. And I couldn't stop. And he goes, do you want that? And I'm like, yes.
It's like,
and he slathered that a half-inch thick on there, half-inch thick at least. And I got out to the car, and I went, argh, and it was like, oh my God, that tasted so good. Not even 10 minutes down the road, I had to pull off the road. Oh. It felt like, and I'm okay, if you're in a car crash, okay, I'll go to the hospital. But apart from that, like, honey, I don't want to be at the hospital for any other reason. No. I was considering to go to the hospital and have my stomach pumped. That's how bad, that's how much pain I was in. It felt like a hot samurai sword going through my stomach. And I couldn't even sit up. I couldn't even drive. Like I was like 20 minutes laying on the front seat, just going, please let me die. You know, like the pain was so intense. And I finally was able to sit up and drive home. And they took me, and I'm like, I literally crawled upstairs to the bed and laid on it, mooing. Ooh. My husband's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I ate cream cheese.
Cream cheese.
Have I had cream cheese since then? No,
Yeah,
I look at cream
not.
cheese and go, oh, just back away, back away. I will never touch cream cheese for the rest of my life, ever. Even the plant-based ones, I'm like, I'm too scared to try that. You know?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, they're clean and they're really good. Kite Hill makes an amazing cream cheese, and there's nothing bad in it.
Well, they're high in oils and salt, and so, but that's
the certain brands though. Kite Hill doesn't have any oil, so
okay.
That's why. But some of them do, absolutely. But Kite Hill does not. And there's a new brand out called Plant Perks.
Ooh,
I don't think you can get it everywhere, but I think you probably find it online. But they're totally clean too. So
I honestly though, but the last time that made a true impact on me.
I'm sure it becomes a mental thing at that point.
Oh yeah, it's like I don't even. Nope, don't even want to look at it. Even if it's plant-based, it's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Oh, how funny!
Wow. Well, what was the most difficult obstacle you faced in going plant-based?
You know, in all honesty, at the time that we did that, so that fateful day that we made the plunge was that Sunday. It was in February of 2014 is when we did that. And so by the time we hit fall, I think, of 2015 was when we were saying, oh, we're going to make a film. You know, we're going to start to work on a film. And so we headed out on the road to capture interviews so that we could put together a trailer, or the sizzle, for Eating You Alive. And that was the biggest challenge, because at that time, you know, plant-based eating was still a, whoa, you know, what kind of weird cult are you a part of? And so there weren't a lot of options out there at all. And when you're driving through, you know, remote areas of Oklahoma or Texas or Kansas or whatever, there's like nothing there. But in some ways, when I look back at that, it was like challenging at the time, but in some ways it was actually so much easier to eat clean because of that. And so what we would do is, in the places, you know, because once you get out to LA, then you start finding some options. You can't always find oil-free options, but you know, we would go to Cafe Gratitude that had several places, and we would try to be very particular with what we ordered, so we avoided oil at all costs. But in the driving in between the areas that would have some options, what we would do is we would pull into the grocery store, and we would go to the freezer section and produce section, of course, but we go to the freezer section, and I would get, they have these little bags in the produce section of like the little potatoes, the roasted potatoes. They have seasoning packets in them that often have oil and stuff, but you don't have to put that on there. So I get the little potatoes that you could put in the microwave then and roast them. And then I get the steam in the bag, brown rice and mixed veggies, or all kinds of veggies that were in the freezer section. And then we would go and then buy a thing of paper plates, right? And then we would go to like the truck stop, pull into the truck stop, because they had microwaves there, you know, if we did that, or if we were staying in the hotel, you know, that night, we'd make sure to get a hotel that had a microwave or whatever, and we'd get a little salsa or something. That's how we ate, you know. So it was challenging on the one hand, because it wasn't a quick thing. You couldn't drive through a drive-through and pick up something. Right. So that was the challenging part, but great memories, actually. And we ate much cleaner, I think, or, you know, we were sort of forced to do that in that way. That was probably the most challenging thing. And the other thing was, I think, probably challenging for a lot of people. I don't know that it was so challenging for me just because of my personality, but I know for some people that the biggest challenge becomes family and social circumstances. going out to lunch with friends or, at work and whatever. And they don't like the being different or, bringing your food, to different things because it seems like it makes it a big deal about stuff or whatever. That wasn't so much a challenge for me because I'm like, this is for me, it's for my health. So I'm going to do what's best for my health. And I can sit here and enjoy my food while I'm visiting with all of you eating at the restaurant or whatever. So that wasn't a big, but I know that tends to be a big one for a lot of people. But it wasn't so much for me. Now, I would say that in the early days, preparing dishes or altering dishes that I'd always fixed and altering them so that they didn't have the dairy or didn't have the oil or whatever in it. That was a bit challenging for me because my family would go, oh, I don't like this as well as when you make it the other way, which I get that. But we all get used to eating things a certain way. And so, but once, you give your taste buds a chance to kind of reset, then it's all good, and I think that kind of won them over time where they realized that the dishes I were preparing were really good and they got away from eating those things on a regular basis. So then their taste buds could reset too. So that became less of a challenge at that point.
I remember like transitioning, like when I drank, milk, we would have whole milk in the refrigerator. And then my mother switched to skim milk. And it's like drinking water, Mom. What's going on here? And then we switched, and then we had no choice because that was it. That was all that was in the fridge.
Yeah.
And then you went back and drank whole milk and you were like, oh my God, this is like cream, it's kind of like that. Your taste buds, you're right. Your taste buds do reset.
They really did. And, my oldest son had allergies and things from birth. He was intolerant of dairy. And so it was kind of funny because when he was born, after the first 2 miserable weeks of him just like drinking some methicone, for the gas and pain it was causing him, my husband had run into a friend of his who was a pediatric nurse, and he was telling her what was going on. And she said, "Does Merrilee dairy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she said, "Tell her to stop." So I was like, oh, for a dairy addict, to tell him to stop, that's like cutting off your right arm. And but it's my baby and I don't want to hurt him. So I did. I stopped all dairy, and you know what? No issues. No more simethicone drops. No more crying till 2 a.m. None of it. All went away immediately when I stopped drinking the dairy because I was nursing. I remember what made that even more impressionable upon me. It was the weekend and we were driving to church one morning, and I was in a rush, hadn't eaten anything for breakfast, but I knew I was going to have to nurse, so we're in the car driving to church, and we had about a 20-minute drive, and I'd gotten some Cheerios and about, maybe an eighth of a cup of 2% milk, just enough to wet it. And I ate that. And that first feeding, literally right after that first feeding, he was screaming bloody murder. He was in such pain and whatever. And I'm like, okay. I get it. So I was off dairy for 10 months and my skin cleared up and I didn't have any digestive issues. You would have thought that would have been my sign, right? That I would have no, but it was several years after that. It wasn't until he was in his late teens that we made this switch. So
no, it's true. I wish I had known that because my children had issues. I didn't realize they were lactose intolerant, and as most people are.
Most babies are, most people are, We
So,
weren't designed for that.
No,
baby cows were designed for that.
Yes. It's the lactating fluid of another species.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I
We're
know.
like the only species on this planet that's consuming another dairy, another species milk.
I know. Yeah. And I think if somebody said, oh, go milk a cat or go, why don't you go do this? And you would go, oh, gross, that's disgusting. Why would I want to do that? Well, if you logic that out, there's only one conclusion at which you can arrive.
Right. So what are you most proud of?
From what perspective?
Pick it.
I'm most proud of being a mom of 3 amazing kids, you know, and having my family all around me. That is what I'm most proud of. Another thing I'm really, really proud of is that when they call us and they say, I saw the movie, it inspired me to make this change, I've lost this much weight, I've gotten off this medication or whatever. It's that is why we made the film, you know, and that is the most fulfilling thing. And that's what makes us from a project perspective and our team, that's what makes us most proud, is being a part of something that was so much bigger than us, that hopefully has impacted people's lives and made people's lives better.
Oh, I love that. I just love that. Because
No.
it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, personally myself, I've lost over 100 pounds. I have
Oh,
healed my thyroid, stopped migraines, stopped rosacea. I've cleaned up my liver. My husband's reversed multiple sclerosis. I
that's
mean,
amazing.
you know, and on and on. I mean, the
Yeah.
stories never end. And,
Yeah.
you know, continually you hear these stories and you're just like, really? Seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, wow, you know, the
Well,
power of food. Who knew?
I know. Well, and that was the whole premise for Disease Reversal Hope. You know, Eating You Alive, if I had to contrast the two, Eating You Alive was kind of a 101, you know, plant-based eating 101, from, you know, soup to nuts, A to Z. Disease Reversal Hope was really focused more on the stories that are inspiring, because it doesn't matter how many, you know, scientific articles are out there, or how many research projects have been done, or how many times the doctor talks to you about it. None of that really matters. It seems to be that what takes people from point A to point B is the story that inspires them, somebody that they connect with, that said, this is what I did and this is what it did for me, that makes you want to go, I want that too. And if they can do it, maybe I can too. And so Disease Reversal Hope is really all about, you know, kind of focusing on those stories that would inspire people to try and say, you know, maybe this is a step I want to take.
Oh, just love that. Love that. Love that. Okay. From your experience, what are 3 things someone can do to help start this journey?
I would say the first thing is set a reasonable time frame for you to dive all in. Be it 2 weeks. I would recommend 2 to 3 weeks. You know, if you can go 30 days, 30 days is best. But I would say I'm actually going to do this all out. No cheating, no nothing. I'm going to dive all in for 2 to 3 weeks. That would be one way that I would suggest people jumpstart this. Don't try and wait in, because you'll get discouraged, because you won't get those results that you're hearing everybody else is having. So that's one thing I would do. The other thing I would do is find somebody to do this with you. And it may not be your spouse. I've heard so many stories with regards to this. So, as an example, if the husband wants to do it and the wife doesn't, and she's the one who prepares all the food, that's a really difficult situation. You know, very challenging. And if the wife wants to do it and the husband doesn't, then the wife's faced with the challenge of, and I'm being kind of what do you call it, profiling here, I guess, but because not always is it the wife that's cooking the food, but for the most part I think that's fairly, you know, customary, that the wife would buy the groceries and prepare the food. But if she wants to do it and the rest of the family doesn't, or the husband doesn't, so what happens is she's having to fix 2 meals, you know, and that becomes very challenging then, because as she's fixing this other meal, there's a temptation to, you know, snack as you're preparing and that type of thing. So find somebody that will take the journey with you, be it hopefully your spouse. That would be the best and the easiest way. But if not, find a friend or someone, or find a group. I think more than ever now, online, such as, you know, your groups and everything, that have resources and accountability, and you can share stories. It's so much easier now than it ever used to be. So there shouldn't really be an excuse for not finding a tribe of people, a community of people who can help you with the journey. And that's really, so that's the second thing. And the third thing I would say is, I think what we find is when we really look at the food that we prepare on a regular basis, there's really only maybe 5 or 6 dishes that we seem to rotate and we gravitate to and we eat all the time. It's rare that somebody is constantly making a new dish time after time and that you don't eat the same thing for like a month. Well, we're creatures of habit. We like certain things. So I would say take your 5 favorite dishes and then find the ways to make those clean. And because then it's something that you're used to, you're familiar with, the recipe's not that difficult then to make some small changes. And that's really all they are ever, is making these small changes to these dishes that you really love and then incorporate those. And then you can get adventuresome as you go further out.
Oh, that's so true. That's one of the standard questions because I'm creating recipes all the time. That's one of the first questions to ask my husband, is this to make again?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, some of the recipes is like, my God, the dog didn't even eat that one. No, not happening. And that's just as important to learn is what you don't like as what you do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I agree. Get those recipes because we used to be like, Mondays was Meatloaf Monday, Taco Tuesday, just find clean versions of those.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
you pretty much can find the recipes now cleaned up already for you. Just Google it,
Yeah. From that perspective, the internet's amazing now that you can just like type in whole food plant-based oil-free recipes and there you go.
Right. 100%. So, well, and even like on my website, simplyplantbased.net, if you go into recipes, it's not just recipes, it's cooking videos. So I show you in like 2 minutes or less how to make that dish.
Yeah, that's an amazing benefit and a resource. That's great.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people still need to learn how to cook.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it seems like we've got more and more away from that as, fast food became more and more accessible. So
I often think about that like hamburger helper, back in the day when it was first introduced, it was, this is going to help mom cook faster. Now it's marketed as home cooked meal.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that kind of crazy?
That just
I'm telling my age, but I actually remember when that came out.
Right? Well, me too. I'm right there with you, dear. So, well, Merrilee, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very grateful for these movies because they help inspire me too. I mean, I've been plant-based for quite a while now, but I still have to hear it, and it still has to resonate. And I love to hear the stories and hear the people and their journeys and what changes they've made, because it just makes me go, right, that's what I need to be doing. It just reaffirms, my beliefs. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for the opportunity, to talk with you as well and to share the message, out there of the film and the inspiring stories, because those people are the rock stars. Those are the people that will inspire the next reversal of multiple sclerosis or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever, and that's what it's all about. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.